Hi, and welcome to Stressed, the podcast to develop your stress resilience. Being ambitious and successful while living a happy life is possible. Learn how you can better cope with stress in day-to-day situations by applying tools and techniques that work for you. My name is Julia Arndt, and I'm extremely grateful that you decided to check out my podcast today. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome back to Stressed, the podcast to develop your stress resilience. I am so grateful and so excited to have you listening to today's podcast episode on how to find fulfillment in your life. And in order to dive into this topic, I invited a very special interview guest to today's podcast episode. His name is Taylor Conroy, and we talked about how he found fulfillment in his own life, and he shares with us different tools and techniques of how he got there. Taylor became a millionaire at 27 years old and realized that he's not living the life he wants, because it would mean that he would be even more burnt out than he felt already at the time. So Taylor went traveling and moved from searching happiness outside himself to searching happiness inside himself. Today, he is a successful entrepreneur, 4 times TEDx keynote speaker, a meditating surfer obsessed with building businesses that make a change. His first social enterprise, Change Heroes, mobilized people in 80 countries to fund and build 400 schools, water projects, libraries, girls' scholarships, anti-sex trafficking work, and lots and lots more. And one of the beautiful things that I always find by interviewing different people from different backgrounds and different stories is that they also challenge me in my own stress management approach. And Taylor is actually challenging me a lot on my approach around my work week and about planning to work less. And he says to me, if you're waiting to have less things to do, to take more days off, it will never happen. And I found that so inspiring and so true, because we are always planning to do something in the future instead of looking at what can we do today in order to make changes in our life. And so I really hope that you are taking away a lot of inspirational insights from this conversation with Taylor. We are talking, for example, about why setting authentic goals is so important and how he made a 4-day work week work for himself. He also gives insights into how you can make giving a habit and why creating structure creates more freedom in our lives. I also love that I could talk really openly with him about how you can create healthier ways for men to think about stress and how he's using meditation to optimize his life. So if you're listening to this podcast episode today, I would love you to come by my Instagram account at Blue Mountain Mindfulness and share any inspirations, any taglines, any insights that Taylor is sharing with us and that you are taking away from today's podcast episode. So without further ado, let's jump into the conversation with Taylor. Enjoy so much. Hi Taylor, how are you today?
I'm freaking fantastic. How are you?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for being on my podcast today. I'm so excited to have you and share your story. But before we jump into all of that, pick us up and tell us, where are you located and what time is it now and what have you been up to today?
Okay, today's been pretty amazing. Right now I'm sitting in my living room, as you can see. And I've got two cups full of hot cacao beside me because it's my early afternoon drink. I think it's like 12:30 or something like that right now. I swam in the cold ocean today, meditated for an hour, and I've been on calls with clients all day, which has been a blast. So far so good. How about you? How's your day? And thanks for having me in your bedroom, by the way.
Yes, of course, my pleasure. And so you're located in San Diego. I'm located in Lake Tahoe. So we are actually on the same time zone, which is not very often with my podcast guests. They're a little bit all over the world.
Yeah.
And I've been doing similar to you. I've been having client meetings this morning. I just went for a very nice walk down to the lake to do a little, in between session, and then just been
Nice.
preparing this podcast. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about you. Who are you, and what have you been up to over the last couple of years?
Sure. I mean, I think I'd say like over the last couple of years have been up, down, sideways, rainbow colored, black and white, and crazy.
Mhm.
Um, in a really, really good way. Now I feel super, super grounded and like I'm building a really nice foundation. But
Mhm.
over the last, like if we flash back like 10 years from now or 10 years ago, I'm 37 now, I would have been 27. I had, a multi-million-dollar real estate company. I had a new truck and a fast motorcycle, a house on the ocean. I had all of these things and was just realizing that I was deeply unhappy.
Mhm.
Um, which it sounds kind of crazy even in now looking back at it. And I wasn't, I don't want to say I was depressed or going through mental health issues. I wasn't, but I was just realizing that what society had spun as the stuff that is going to make me happy was
Mhm.
just a load of shit. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yes, you're allowed to.
Good. Cause it's a load of shit. And I just kind of kept learning that over and over and over again, whether it be at reaching some financial goal or reaching some goal of a relationship that I wanted to be in, or reaching a goal physically. I was a bodybuilder at the time.
Mhm.
I was in all of these different areas. I was at like what you would look at as like peak shape, right? So
Mhm.
27, millionaire, all the stuff. I had like 3% body fat, was 220 pounds, solid muscle, was like in the peak shape of my life. Looked
Mhm.
like pretty ridiculous actually if you look at the pictures now. Like I look like such an idiot, but and had
I
all the
bodybuilded for a while as well.
yeah, you get it. Yeah, you
Yeah,
get it.
I totally get it.
How insane it is. Anyways, that was like the peak of my like outward search for happiness. And after that, I decided I was like, I need to go and find myself. I need to go and find out like what do I love and what would actually bring me some fulfillment. And I went to Uganda, I went to Kenya, I visited a number of different villages in sub-Saharan Africa to find a cause that I could start to give to, right?
Mhm.
To really like get involved in. And fell absolutely in love with Uganda. I fell in love with education. In developing countries. And long story short, I came back with this like mission that I wanted to start building schoolhouses. I wanted to
Mhm.
start funding schoolhouses. I was really comfortable with money, and I thought I'll be a fundraiser. And fast forward, I ended up raising enough money to build a schoolhouse, which is $10,000. Then raised enough money to build 30 schoolhouses. Then raised enough money to build 100 schoolhouses. Then 200 and 300, and we started funding libraries and water projects. And this is all through a fundraising kind of platform that I invented.
Mhm.
And we ended up building 500 projects all over the world in 14 countries, like
Wow.
Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Haiti, China, India, all over the world. And built these 500 projects. It was phenomenal, fascinating, crazy, up and down. I ended up speaking about it all over the world. I spoke at the United Nations 4 times and TEDx and Princeton and Harvard and Cornell and all these places. And um, ended up going completely belly up financially, right?
Mhm.
So through all of this stuff, I'm trying to make my company work, trying to make a company work that was like this fundraising company that was like bettering the world and trying to make money in a capitalistic society just proved to be harder than I thought.
Mhm.
And I ended up declaring bankruptcy. So I
Okay.
went from I so I went
Wow.
from, like I said, millionaire bodybuilder, uh, you know,
Living the dream,
cocky,
probably what a lot of people say.
cocky, arrogant prick
Uh-huh.
to service first. Service is all that matters. It's all about impact. Not thinking about money, and therefore, not. I mean, I thought about money, but not smart enough,
Mhm.
and ended up going bankrupt. And I ended up letting a lot of people down in the process. I had investors. I had like 42 investors in that company, that social good company,
Mhm.
and ended up what I looked at as like letting them all down. I remember sitting in an apartment in New York one time, and I called it my own little hell. And I sat there and I called all of these investors and told them that the money was gone and it didn't work out and that we weren't funding schools anymore because we were broke. And so I went through this like really tumultuous time, this real like dark night of the soul of like, was all my success before this a fluke?
Yeah.
All I own now is a backpack and a suitcase and the clothes that I have in them. That's literally all I owned.
Mhm.
And like, where do I go from here? And so that was a couple years ago. I was in bankruptcy. I'm 37 now, like I said, and I was 35. I was in bankruptcy, so it's not that long ago, right? That I was in it,
Mhm.
and I remember being in that time of life and going, "Wow, this is probably pretty unique." Like this is starting to look at the opportunity in that experience. Like,
Mhm.
what can I learn from this? What this is some advice that one of my investors gave me was, basically like get up, dust yourself off, start another venture as soon as possible, and learn everything you can from this failure. He said it's a gold mine. And so I started writing lists and lists and lists of things that I learned on the way out, on the way down. And it was crazy how much more I learned going broke than I did in making money.
Mhm.
Yeah, I learned more going down than I did on the way up. And so I harnessed those things. I vowed to correct a lot of the mistakes that I'd made. And now, 2 years, I'm not even 2 years out of bankruptcy, and I've made it all back. Um, I'm back in a place where I feel very comfortable financially. I live in the home that I want to live in, and it took a lot of soul searching. It took a lot of looking at my bank account and seeing a dollar. I remember one time having $1.12 left. I had a lot of people that I could lean on, like friends lent me their places to stay in for free.
Mhm.
One guy like just gave me his guest room for free for 6 months because he knew I couldn't afford rent. And I just sat there and I started a new company and built from scratch and built it with a really, really strong foundation. Um, and now that I'm in this position, I can now just start to get back into the impact stuff. So we'll probably fund another 30. We'll fund 30 homes for families in Mexico this year. We funded about 150 in the past, and next year we'll probably do 100 homes, and then the year after that we'll probably do 1,000 and start to scale it up. So that
Mhm.
you asked a very straightforward question. That was a long answer, but
Yes,
the
no, it's
last the
great.
last few years have been a lot.
And
Safe
I have
to
a lot of
say,
questions about
yeah.
that. Okay, so let me take a step back and start from Taylor, 27 years old, millionaire. You have a beautiful house at the ocean. You said you're
Yeah,
like, you know, you look great, I'm sure. You're fit. Everything is just as you maybe imagined it to be. And then
yeah.
how was that moment? Like, were you like, okay, what's next? Or were you like, I'm not happy? Or how did that change come?
One of the most profound moments to me was at an award ceremony. So I had a real estate company at the time, okay, and I was going to get this big award. I'd made more money than I think any other new agent I think had ever made. Made
Mhm.
$500,000 as a brand new agent, and um, because real estate, I love real estate. It comes naturally to me. I feel whatever, I like it. And before that, the most I'd ever made in a year was about $35,000. And then the next year I made 500. So it was a real shift in my own
Mhm.
thinking of what's possible and all
Mhm.
that stuff. And
Mhm.
I remember sitting there about to get my award for making $500,000, which is like this big plaque. And I'm wearing my suit and I'm feeling all special and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
I had my fiance beside me, former fiance, and a real estate agent, a really, really good one, leans over and she says, "Taylor, like it's crazy that how much you made last year. I've never seen it. I've never even seen anyone make half that in their first year." She said, "You hit your goal." She said, "What are you going to do next year? What's your goal for next year?" And I thought to myself, wait a second. I just went through like 3 burnouts. I stressed myself out. I worked so much. I didn't go to family reunions. I didn't go to weddings. I didn't go to anything because I was trying to hit this fucking goal of $500,000. And
Mhm.
now I'm supposed to just turn around and set another goal, another higher goal. And, this, let's say like the arrogance or the overconfidence that I had in my head of like I'm good at setting goals and therefore I'm good at life started kind of crumbling because I started realizing that setting goals definitely was not all there was to life. That's the first time I got kicked in the behind on that one, and
Mhm.
I tried to forget it because I was like, no, 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 I'm just getting good at this whole hitting goals thing. I want to go back to that. I want to set another goal and
Yeah.
go for it. And
That's
so
what
I
you're
did. I
supposed
said
to
it.
do in life, right?
That's what you're supposed to do. Go to any
Yeah.
fucking Tony Robbins conference. You're supposed to set goals.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not against setting goals, but it's the reason why we set them. For me, they were out of a place of ego, which is whatever. It's fine. But from there, started learning. I started really sinking in like there's got to be more to life than this, than hitting goals, than becoming a bodybuilder and getting a truck and having all these silly things that I was striving for. And that's where stuff started to shift. And that's why I decided that I would travel the world. I didn't just go to sub-Saharan Africa. I traveled around the world for a year. I went to
Mhm.
15 different countries. And in those countries, the perpetual thought was like, who am I? Like, what do I want to do in the world? How can I make the most impact in the world? Like,
Yeah.
it's not just about setting goals. It's not just about money. Thank God I feel so grateful to have learned that lesson at 27, 28, 29. That's right around when it was really sinking in,
Mhm.
rather than striving for power and money and prestige and whatever else
Mhm.
that we as men predominantly go for. I'm not saying that women don't, but I'm just saying that it's
Yeah.
very prevalent in men for just to like, equate our self-worth with our net worth,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So I'm really grateful to have learned that at an early age. So I think that's what your question
Yeah.
was.
No,
That's
it
what I
was,
was
yeah.
thinking.
So you basically, that was basically that shifting moment for you. Like you went to the ceremony and you're like, okay, like, do I really want to set the next goal and get into the next burnout? Or like, because that's so resonating with me. And like, what we got asked at when I was working was always like, choose someone, in kind of in the organization or in the company that you're really looking up to and who you want to become. And I was like, I don't really see anyone there because they're all like super stressed
Boom.
out and like they don't live the life that I actually think I
Yep.
would like to have, and
Yep.
that was an eye-opening situation for me, but it still took me another 1, 2, 3 years to leave and also figure out what I want to do next.
Yeah, because those moments, they don't just happen all at once, right? Like that may have been the catalyst moment for me of
Hmm.
that thing falling down. But even later in that conference, I asked a guy similar to you, this guy who'd been in the business for I think 17 years, and he made more and more every year. And he got the biggest prize, right? He got this prize of like, I think the Diamond Club Award. Made $1 million in commissions that year. And he was the number one realtor for Remax in Western Canada, which is where I'm from.
Hmm.
And I went up to him and I asked him, I said, hey, I was kind of perplexed by this whole thing that had happened at the ceremony. And I said to him, it was named Terry. I said, Terry, how is it that you make more and more every year? Like, how do you for 17 years and
Hmm.
you're like always number one? How are you doing that? And he says, he turns to me, and I'm waiting for some profound wisdom. And he says, Taylor, I hate finishing second. I hate finishing second. And I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, I only like to finish first. And I remember thinking, what a fucking sad existence.
Yeah.
You're working your nuts off nonstop for that award.
Hmm.
And I looked down and I realized, like, because that's what I had just done. I just worked
Hmm.
my whatever I was off for
Hmm.
for that award, and I thought that's not what I want to be like at all. And that catalyzed this whole thought process. I read the 4 Hour Work Week. 4 Hour Work Week was a huge book back then. That was when it was just like peaking. And this is like what is it, 2008, 2009. And so I read that and I was like, I want to travel. I want freedom. I
Yeah.
want impact. I want meaning. And
Hmm.
I went searching for it. And that's what changed everything.
Hmm. One last question that I have around this time for you before we move on to the next era that you had. What were like your signs of burnout and being stressed out? How were you aware of that at that point, or were you just like, oh, like I'm a little exhausted, but I keep on going?
Oh yeah, I mean, I could write a book on burnout. Now I know that when I start to get a feeling of it's like anxiety, or it's some feeling when I open my inbox. It always
Hmm.
has to do with the inbox. If I open my
Okay.
inbox, or even just like open my computer, and I'm just like, ugh, and I feel this like anxiety and nausea, and it's when those feelings come up, and I go, oh shoot, I'm there again. I didn't even realize that I was here again. And in real estate, what I would do, if I'd get to that point, I'd be like, oh no, oh God, what's happening? And I would just get in my truck and I would drive up island. I lived on this island called Vancouver Island, up the west
Hmm.
coast of Canada. I would drive up the island and I would drive to like some little hotel. I'd grab a 6-pack of beer, some basic groceries, go to a hotel, and I would just chill for like 3 days.
Okay.
Right. And it would take me that much time to kind of recuperate.
Yeah.
Um, and so once I recuperated and I was fresh, I started learning that I was like, wait a second, every time I come back from a vacation, right? Whether the vacation was prompted by burnout or not. Let's say I went to Mexico for a vacation with my girlfriend at the time, or I went to Hawaii, or I went to the cabin where my family lives, or I went to wherever. Every time I came back, efficiency and productivity was through the roof. I was like, the quality of my work was amazing. I was in a super good mood, and therefore I was in sales. So your mood equates to
Yeah.
money,
Yeah.
right? If your mood is really good, then people buy. And
Mhm.
so my mood was really good. I wanted to go to appointments. I wanted to see clients. I had a very long fuse, you know,
Mhm.
and I could negotiate. I could really. One thing that was really potent to me was this saying that says, "Do you want to be right or do you want to be rich?"
Mhm.
Right? When as a negotiator, you can be one of those two things,
Yeah.
not always both. You can be right or you can be rich. And in real estate, you're always negotiating. You're always negotiating against someone, right? All
Mhm.
day. And the negotiation starts before you even get on the phone, right? Like it's the frame and it's all this stuff, which I really like. I really like negotiating. And back there, I liked it even more so. And I could negotiate better when I was fine with not being right. If I was relaxed, I
Mhm.
could let the other person spew their ego all over the place. Blah, blah, blah. They'd yell and scream and whatever. And I'd say, "You're
Mhm.
right, you're right, you're right. But let's still put this deal together.
Mhm.
Let's come to an agreement because our clients want us to." And da da da. And I would get so many more deals done because I was
Mhm.
relaxed and I wasn't like stuck and hard. And that was because I just came back from a vacation. So
And how long
now
did that last? How
that
many days?
yeah, I mean, it would last. Sometimes it would last a week. Sometimes it would last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
right? And I started thinking. I said, I think that the real juicy spot would be to go away once a month. Would be to
Mhm.
go away for like 4 or 5 days at least once a month, and
Mhm.
then to go away for a big trip once a quarter. So
Mhm.
now, fast forward 10 years, like my work week now is like 3.5 days. So I work Monday, all day Monday with meetings with the team. Tuesdays I just create content, which is why you and I are talking today. It's
Yeah.
Tuesday, it's
Yeah.
content day, right? And
Awesome.
then when Wednesday is partnerships day, and then Thursday I kind of wrap up. Friday, Saturday, Sunday are off.
Nice.
And it's because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are so efficient and productive when I've taken that time off.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, and I think that's where I want to get to as well at some point. But I'm
Mm.
still having so many things to do as well that at the moment it's hard.
Well,
At the moment it's like
that's
Monday,
if you're
Tuesday,
wait
Wednesday,
if
Thursday.
you're waiting if you're waiting for things to if you're waiting for to have less things to do to be able to take more things off days off, it will never ever happen.
Yeah,
You're the expert of this. You should know this. This is like
I do. Yeah,
it has to be
but
like a very
but for me the thing is I don't see it as work anymore, and that's like the beautiful thing. I think that is a huge experience for me now, right
how
after.
long do you think that will last?
Um, I don't know. I've only been here for 3 months, so and I know that it's not a
I don't,
sustainable thing, you know. Um, but yeah.
and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I
No,
am
no,
trying to be
yeah.
argumentative in the way of like these things. It's like giving to charity. Okay,
Mhm.
people say they'll give money once they've made money.
Mhm.
Giving is a habit. Giving is a pattern. Giving is something that is like learned. And I really like the saying Tony Robbins says. He says, "If you won't give 10 cents out of a dollar, you'll never give 100,000 out of a million.
Mhm.
If you won't give 10 cents out of a dollar, like when you have not very much, you won't give 10 cents. You'll never give 100,000 out of a million once you've got lots, right?"
Mhm. Mhm.
And taking time off and breaks and stuff like that, it's a habit,
Mhm.
right? It's not like, okay, I think now I've made it, everything's under control, and now I can take more time off. That does not happen. Why? Because we're infinitely expanding beings. The one thing that was constant in our life is change,
Mhm.
and we don't like to stay at one spot.
Yeah.
It's just in us to
True.
expand,
Yeah.
right? And so as we're expanding, that means more people, more partnerships, more work, and
Mhm.
more work equals more work, more time, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Whereas we have to figure out, like, in my humble opinion, is we need to figure out like what works for us. What
Yeah.
is like the ideal work week? Like actually think about that. Like for me, Mondays are on fire. I love Mondays because I'm back and I'm refreshed.
Mhm.
Tuesdays, I'm still totally on fire. I've got lots of energy.
Yeah.
Wednesdays, I like to have conversations. By Thursday, I'm starting to wane. By Friday, I'm useless.
Mhm.
Saturday and Sunday, if I take calls on Saturday and Sunday, I've ruined my weekend and not recuperated. So
Mhm.
I think for people that are listening to your stuff, is like they're listening to because they want less stress in their life, right?
Yeah.
They want more comfort,
Exactly.
more peace, more joy, more
Yeah.
meaning, etc. And all these things are habits, right?
Mhm.
It's like meditation, right?
Oh,
Like, oh, I'll meditate when I've got more time. That is the biggest load I've ever heard. I'll meditate when I have more. Wait, what? So you're
you
so
meditate to
busy
get
that you
more
can't
time, right?
meditate?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like meditation is a habit, taking days off is a habit, giving to charity is a habit. All of these things start like just one little bit at a time.
Mhm.
And we can't, the whole mentality of, wait until this to get that is like the one of the poisons of our culture. We're indoctrinated to think like when you retire, then you can travel. Like, wait, you're going to wait till you're 55 or
I know.
65 and have matching
Mhm.
tracksuits with your wife and to actually rent an RV and travel with one of your bad hips. And you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like
Yeah, 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 yeah,
it's
for sure.
crazy to wait to, if any, and it's insidious, that thought process of I'll do it when, that is makes so much sense in our brains, right? Because we
Mhm.
actually think that time exists. We actually think that we live in a linear reality, which we don't, which
Mhm.
maybe this podcast isn't on that, but we absolutely don't. And what we think it does, and we're convinced it does, and therefore we act like it does, and we act like stuff in the future is going to be totally different. Like we're just going to have more time. It's not true.
Mhm.
The future doesn't fucking exist. It literally does not exist.
Mhm.
That is just a statement of pure fact. And anyone who doesn't even believe in, let's say, quantum physics or the realm that I'm gently touching on right now, you know the future does not exist. It has not happened yet.
Mhm.
You know that something that you do now could and will affect the future,
Mhm.
right? And so the best thing that you can do to affect the future is to live in accordance with the future that you want to have, right? So if you want to have more time off, you have to just force, or if you
Wow.
create more time off now.
Yeah.
Anyways, got a bit of
So
a
let
rant
me
there.
ask you this question. Did you, so because I always have like this one book in my head when people talk exactly how you just talked about quantum physics and the power of now. Are you referring to The Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle? Have you ever read this book?
I love that book. I'm
Me
I'm not
too.
referring to it
My Bible.
specifically, but but it's a very, very powerful, amazing book that I
Yeah.
think about a lot. Yes,
Same, same. Yeah, I love that, and
definitely.
I can just say plus one to that. Okay, so tell us about the company that you're doing now, because I think that's really interesting as well. Because you said that you're building more schools and you're helping in that sense. But what is it that you do in order to create more impact as well for other people?
Yeah, I think that actually dovetails into relaxation and space.
Hmm.
For me, structure creates freedom, right?
Hmm.
So what I love to know, I really love to know, am I on track for my enough? So when I was going through that whole stage of my career of like wanting to make more money and own more property and have more investments and more, I was just continuous more. I always wanted more. I was
Hmm.
never enough. Bigger muscles, all the stuff, right? More.
Hmm.
And I sat down when I went on my trip around the world to those 15 countries, and I sat down and I said, I'm not getting up from this table until I decide what is enough, because this whole more thing is going to could plague me, and I see it plaguing. Again, was looking at men as examples in my life. I could see it plaguing men that were older than me, never having enough, and
Hmm.
never thinking that they had enough. And so I sat down and I decided what was enough for me from the ages of 28 to 32. For me, that just intuitively felt like a good age range, because I thought when I'm 32, maybe I'll want to have a family and I'll
Hmm.
change what is enough. So I
Hmm.
defined how much was enough coming in per month, how much was enough having like safely invested, and how much was enough like in the bank that I could use.
Hmm.
And I defined that enough. And as soon as I defined that, I already had it. So I was like, there, now I'm not thinking about me buying more or investing more and all that kind of stuff. And it just completely freed my mind. It
Hmm.
freed my mind. It turned my mind from being always so inward, right, to like, how can I get more? How can to being outward? Because now that I've got enough,
Hmm.
I can now make impact. I can now, the energy that I have, I don't know if you're picking up, I have energy. Like
Yeah.
that energy is going to go somewhere, right? And so
Hmm.
it started to go towards helping other people.
Hmm.
That's where like the real core of it came from, is like, I was like, I have enough time, I have enough money, etc. So now I'm going to go and help people, I'm going to go and make as much impact as possible. So that freed me up for that kind of thinking. And so now the company that I have here is, I know exactly to the dollar what our goals are from now until December 31st, 2021,
Hmm.
right? For that whole space. And it's not stagnant. It's not like enough, just this much amount a month every month. It's got a very sensible, responsible, and achievable and aspirational goal every month.
Okay.
And that all leads up to something that's really, really powerful for me, which at the end of 2021, that's when my intuition, my impulse says that I'll probably start having kids,
Okay.
is my guess.
Nice.
You know,
Okay.
we're in whatever 2019 right now,
Mhm.
but I think I'm about 2.5 years away from having kids.
Okay.
And I'm not saying like that's just the best time to have kids, and so therefore I'll have it. My intuition says prepare for a family.
Mhm.
And at this exact moment, I don't even have a girlfriend or a prospect of a girlfriend, but I have a feeling that I will probably meet one and procreate at some point.
Well,
So
you manifest that as well, which is, I think, beautiful because, I'm sure you know a lot about manifestation, and Eckhart Tolle speaks about that as well. So just manifesting that in 2.5 years, that's what's going to be. I'm pretty sure
yeah,
that's what it's going to be.
I'm guessing so as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that having that structure, and that is a combination of like the expansion with enough, to
Hmm.
me is magical.
Hmm.
So basically I'm like, here's the expansion that I feel would be really, really wonderful. And that's intuitively feels right for me. And it leads up to the lifestyle that I want to have with my family, et cetera. And it creates, so that therefore creates structure that I'm not trying to make more. I'm not like most people when they go into business, they just try to make more than they made last year. It's not really based on anything. They're like, last year we made 1 million, so this year we want to make 1.5. Or
Hmm.
last year we made 100K, so this year we want to make 200.
Hmm.
You know, like that's what it's based on. There's no real why behind it. There's no like no rationale, and so therefore they get burnt out trying to go for these goals that don't actually really matter to them,
Hmm.
and they might be totally inconsequential. They're just like added a 0 or they added a 5 or whatever it is that they wanted to do to their goal, right? So for me, looking at it, it's like by 2021, I have very clear how much I want to sell this business for, and I'll
Hmm.
sell it for that amount by the end
Hmm.
of 2021. That is based on investing that money at a reasonable return to give me the amount per month that is abundant
Hmm.
and reasonable for my family and I, so
Hmm.
that I can support my partner, our child or children as they come, and we can do whatever we want. It's very clear to me I want to be very involved in my children's
Okay.
lives. I want to be like there. I want to see it. It seems so fascinating to me. Like they just
Yeah.
change so fast, right? I
Hmm.
don't want to be gone 40 hours a week and missing those 40 hours, right? I'm
Yeah.
sure I'll have my projects. I'll write another book or whatever, but
Hmm.
I want to see it. And so that for me, it's visceral. It's important to me to hit those goals because those goals to me tie to me having quality time with my daughter.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like to me hitting some other goal. So that helps me then stay in my own lane. I don't compare myself to other businesses. I don't give two shits about what another business is doing,
Hmm.
or someone who's in my space making more faster. Wonderful.
Oh,
Making more.
there you are.
Sorry.
No,
If
that's
they are
okay.
making more, fantastic. I'm like can be their cheerleader, being like, yes, you're doing awesome,
Hmm.
because there's no competition because I know exactly where I'm going. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, anyways, with that structure, also gives me the ability to give, gives me the ability to give time. We give 10% of our profits to impact work, so I know exactly where I'm going to put that money and how much it's going to be and what it can create, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, I love that structure, and I know I'm guessing 80% of the people that are listening to this right now are going, oh well, I'm just not really like a structure person. I like more of a go with the flow. Go with the flow is an excuse for not having
For
detailed
not
plan of
having
your future.
structure.
Going with the flow is a fucking spiritual bypass for not planning out things that need to be planned out and deserve to be planned out, like your employees' paychecks
Yeah.
deserve to be planned out. If you have an employees, you owe them to plan out
Yeah.
the future,
Yeah.
right? And by the way, them that you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your inner child, your subconscious, all of these parts of you that want to thrive, that want to have food and water and a
Exactly.
healthy life. You owe it to yourself to become a planner. If you're
Hmm.
just not, quote unquote, not a planner, you've been using that excuse for way too long, and you know it's the thing that could probably impact your life the most positively is
Yeah.
actually having a plan that you execute. Go,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like this,
Yeah.
we can get in
No,
this realm of
absolutely.
like the new
It's good
age.
that you
I'm more
say
of a
that.
go with the flow person. If you're a go with the flow person, get off birth control. Don't use condoms. Then just have kids when you want to have when it just happens because you're just going to go with the flow.
Yeah.
And you know what? Don't even. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
don't think of, if you really go with the flow, then really go with the flow.
Hmm.
But if you want to, like, there's things that
Yeah.
you want
If
to
you want to be
achieve in your,
successful. Yeah.
yeah, if you're successful, if you want to achieve in this life, then we do, there's a certain aspect of us that needs to do planning. I'm not sure why I got so like triggered there, but
No, no, no. That's great. I want you to explain exactly what you're doing, or what your company does.
oh, right. Sorry about
Yes. No, that's
that.
fine. I
So
like those side tracks. It's great.
what we do, everything for us and for myself and the company that I've started spawns from the core of creating oneness,
Mm.
right? Shifting humanity from separation to connection. And I don't mean that like we're going to connect the world like Facebook. What I mean is showing people that, remembering that we're all one. We're all the same. We're all part of the same thing. right? This whole separate, that's why I like to not be in competition with people, because competition is a symptom of separation, right? And you and I are the same. We're working on the same, you and I have the same mission, I bet. I mean, guess is you're inspiring people to be less stressed, et cetera. But underneath that is
We
for
are all
people to
the
live
same.
more, we're all the same.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where the fundraising company came from, was like building empathy through raising money for people and connecting in that way. Then I had a travel company that we would build homes throughout Latin America, and that was to build empathy and remind people that we're the same. You're the same as the person who's in Guatemala who doesn't have a house, and so we can raise money. We build a house together for them and build empathy, and they realize they're the same as us. We realize we're the same as them, etc. The company that I have now is similar in that we want to shift humanity's idea away from separation towards connection. We do that through really impactful ideas, through talks, through speaking, through getting people's voice, getting positive, uplifting, wonderful, connecting messages out to the world. And what I found in my career, after doing hundreds of speaking events, speaking at all over the world in front of way over 100,000 people, the number one stage to speak on, in my experience, is a TEDx stage. Like hands down, unequivocally. Like I said, my talks at Harvard, UN, Disney, KPMG, Morgan Stanley, they're all lovely and good. None of them did anything for like a movement building and for actually getting people to take action like a TEDx talk.
That's awesome.
And so I started teaching. I've done 4 TEDx talks. I started teaching people how to get them. We've now helped well over 200 people land TEDx talks. And so what we do is we find people that have epic messages. Just like, it's like people that are listening to this so far, chances are they're messengers. They've got something inside them, right? That's like, they want to get it out. That's why they want to feel less stressed, because the stress is impacting their message, like why they're here, what they're supposed to do in this lifetime. And so what we like to do is find those people that have this epic message and idea, put it on what I look at as like the most credible stage in the world, and then get that talk a whole bunch of views, right? Get it viewed. Like we just had a client who just passed 130,000 views. Her talk just came out. It's 130,000 human beings. You know what I mean? Like picture that, 130,000. That's a small town of people sitting there watching this talk, being impacted by it, being changed, learning something that they didn't know. And this person never, ever reached that many people before, not even close. But we got her on the TEDx stage, showed her, and then the talk spread, et cetera, et cetera. And I've seen it with tons of clients. We had another client who just passed 100,000 views, got another client who's got 4 million views, 4 million people that have impacted by his message. And that's where I think, because the media that we see nowadays, the stuff that is actually getting out there, mainstream, is like, be scared, be full of fear, be blah, 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 blah. That's just like our typical, that's what we get. That's what we ingest when we're looking at mainstream media. I think the mainstream media should be uplifting ideas that could shift humanity in a positive direction. So that's the media we create.
That's so awesome. I love that you're doing that. I think that's such an important work. And we talked about this as well already a tiny little bit. I definitely have that on my list as well of things to do, getting out on TEDx and speaking about the importance of stress management. I have a couple more questions for you, because I think you have such an amazing, inspiring. The first thing that I wanted to ask, because you talked about men specifically, and about how we have like those, like there's a certain pressure, I guess, on men as well, right? We're raised in a certain way, and they need to bring the money in. I mean, I know that's kind of old conservative views as well, but I feel like that's almost ingrained in how men should be. Is that a message that you share with others, that men don't have to be that way, or like how do you think about that?
So we all have, let's say, if I'm just going to speak about men here, because that has been my experience on this earth plane this time around, is in a man's body. So in my experience, there is nothing on earth more satisfying than providing for a woman and children. There's nothing more satisfying. I said to my business partner the other day, I said, you'd never guess what just happened to me. He said, what? I said, I got to provide for 3 women today. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I got to help my former girlfriend with this. I got to help this woman with this. I got to help this woman with this. We have, as men, if we really feel it, there is an incredible endorphin rush, hormonal cocktail that happens when we get to provide and support a woman. It's in me. It's it's what we're here for in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we're here to create, et cetera, et cetera. And one of our core jobs is to support women. And if you look at that, I'm not saying support as in like support your spouse financially. That's not what I'm saying. What
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying is that we are the banks of the river and the women are the river. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's my understanding from my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
I do not advocate for women and men having all of them having the same jobs and doing the same thing and da da da. I say play to your strength, whatever that is, and embrace whatever kind of man or whatever kind of woman or whatever kind of person you are, because there's some men that are much more artistic than I am. They're much more creative. Maybe they're more in tune with their feminine side than I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's what they tend to go towards. And there's a lot of women that are more towards the much more structure and maybe what would be called a more masculine approach to business and life. And so whatever you are, that's what you should embrace and be. My all of the inner work that I've done continues to show me as a skew highly to the masculine side,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a very high sex drive, a very, very high testosterone, and like very in the old days when I was before trying to get away from competition, very competitive,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like this, just a lot of very masculine.
Oh,
My alarm keeps going off.
no
My
worries.
alarm keeps popping out. It says, dance,
Sorry.
I'm alive, because it goes off a few times a day. Anyways, so that's for me, what feels best is to provide, to hold structure. That's for me.
Mm-hmm.
And for other people, it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
different.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what that hormonal cocktail is that happens when we do that as men, but I like to explore it, and I like to do things that help me to continue to boost my testosterone. It's our focus hormone, right? It's our focus. It's our happy hormone as guys. Did you know that like men that have lowered levels of testosterone are 40% more likely to contract cancer, heart disease, and to literally just die? Like some 40% more chance of death
Wow.
with lower testosterone.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So
crazy.
so that's part of the reason why I jump in the super cold water in the morning. It's why I
Uh-huh.
like to work out. It's why I'm going to Poland to like climb a mountain with Wim Hof in a pair of board shorts in January, you know, is to like continue. And why I'm doing like survival school is to continue to tap into like my inner man, the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that is very clear and primal and natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to continue to explore, because that's what feels best.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so if there are men listening now and they're like, okay, that's great that you are this way, but what am I doing now? Like, is it the
Mm.
message that you think is important is that everybody just needs to find their own way, and that's okay that they are a certain way and that they should just continue with that? Or what do you think
Yeah,
is
it's
important as a message to deliver?
I think the message, the question to ask ourselves, one that I just really love, is like, what would I love?
Mm-hmm.
What would I love right now? Not what is society telling me I should love. Not like, oh, society's saying that men should be this way or that way. It pretty much everything society tells us is complete bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's got an agenda behind it, and it's there for a reason to benefit some humans, not necessarily. It doesn't have our best interest in mind, let's say.
Yeah.
So if you love to create art, then that's what I would advocate that you do. If you love to build businesses like me, I love building businesses. I love it. It's so fun. I just sit here like a Friday night. If you're like, hey Taylor, you want to come out for a drink? I'm like, no, I'm planning. I'm like planning the next 3 years of our business. And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
whatever it is that like, you know, whatever it is that lights you up. I know it's kind of cliche advice, whether you're a man or a woman, you know, if that's the thing with the and the like feminism, let's say the new wave of feminism, which is freaking awesome, which is so freaking awesome, because what I think is in that is for women to do what they want to do, what's inherently natural for them. For some women, it's to run a fucking company and rock that thing, and that's what they should do, because I truly believe that women have way more tools available to them than men do,
Mm-hmm.
and they are inherently better at running companies than men are if harnessed correctly.
Yeah.
And some women want to have a family, you know, like in 3 years from now, when I just start raising a family, I'm going to be the stay-at-home dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going to be there raising those kids, and I'll probably go through an identity crisis. I'll probably be like, oh, I'm not, you know, like building a company, and I'm not needed as much. I'm with the kids. and that's a phase that I'm going to embrace in my life. You know what I mean? Like we want to like paint everyone with the same like swath. We want to be like, this is what you should do in your life. I think life is best enjoyed in phases.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like the phase that I'm in right now, it's a rebuilding phase. It's
Mhm.
a build the foundation phase. It's a get everything set up phase.
Yeah.
Next is a deep family phase and connection and raising my kids,
Mhm.
right? And then after that, it might be another creation phase where who knows, maybe you become an artist, maybe you can, whatever it is. I just say embrace the phase that you're in, whatever phase you're in. So don't like, stop trying to find like, people are like, I need to find my purpose for the rest of my life. Fuck purpose. What? Who's who on earth knows what they want to do with the rest of their entire life and it never changes? It
Yeah.
does not happen.
It's
It does
so
not
true.
exist.
Yeah.
It's like, what would you love right now? If you're a
Mhm.
25-year-old person, chances are like getting like married and finding your person, it's a bit too early for that. Like you don't even know yourself yet. Like
Yeah.
don't rush to that phase. That phase will come. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like the
Mhm.
procreation phase, that phase will come. What are you in a building phase, exploration phase? Should you travel the world? All that kind of stuff. It's like, what would you love right now? What feels like the most, what is the deepest impulse that you feel right now?
Yeah.
And go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have so many more questions. You're sharing so many cool things. So, and it's going all a little bit in different directions because there are so many, yeah, just so many ideas and topics. Meditation. You mentioned meditation earlier, and I was curious to know: did you start it at a certain point in your life because you're really stressed out, or did it came through your travel? How did that come together for you?
Most of the decisions that I made in my 20s, which is where a lot of habits started, happened from the thought of how can I be more successful.
Hmm.
It was rarely how can I be less stressed out. It was more how
Okay,
can I optimize.
nice.
And um, I watched that. Remember that movie, The Secret, the book, The Secret. It was like the first like very popular law of attraction thing that came
Mhm.
out ages and ages ago by a woman named Rhonda Byrne. Anyways, I watched that and I was like, whoa, this stuff seems pretty awesome. This is the very beginning. Like right nowadays, everyone knows about law of attraction and
Yeah,
manifesting and all that kind of stuff. It's like,
yeah.
common lingo. Back then, I'd never heard of it. I think I was like 24 or something. And pardon me, yes, this is something like 12, 13 years ago. And I watched this movie. All the people that were featured in the movie they seemed like they were happy. They seemed like they had like balanced lives and they were thriving and abundant and all these things.
Mhm.
And they seemed like living a life that I would like to live. And I
Mhm.
heard somewhere that the one thing that they all had in common is that they all meditated.
Mm.
And I was like, well, if all those super successful people are meditating, then I should try it.
Yeah.
And tried it and I fell completely in love with it. And here's that kind of dovetails into like this thought process on like an impulse, like following an impulse,
Mhm.
is that a lot of times we shut ourselves off from experiences because we think we're doing the experience for the wrong reason.
Mhm.
Okay, so we shut ourselves off from experiences thinking that we're doing it for the wrong reason. In like for example, um, let's say I want to, yeah, like the meditating. I started it because I wanted to be more successful, right?
Mhm.
And in reality, sure, it makes me more successful, but that's like one tiny little thing. It also makes me peaceful and calm and clear and authentic and in touch with
Mhm.
myself and
Mhm.
happy. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like probably the number one contributor to my happiness,
Yeah.
right? But I did it. So the universe, I think, has a way of dangling a carrot that might not actually even be associated to the thing that it wants us to do,
Mhm.
right? Like, and we've heard these stories all the time. Like we go, oh, I got a flat tire and I was really pissed off. And then I had to take the car into the mechanic, and there standing in the mechanic was this woman. And I ended up marrying her, and we had kids. And if I never
Yeah.
got the flat tire, I never would have married her, right? And then,
Yeah.
but then it's like that's a
Absolutely.
crazy coincidence. It's not a
Mhm.
freaking coincidence.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as coincidence. So
Things happen for
you don't if you're getting an impulse to do something,
Mhm.
then you get an impulse to do something, then the rational mind pops in and goes, oh, I want to do this because X. I
Mhm.
want to do this because of this, right?
Mhm.
In reality, like I started giving to charity because I read a book that said you need to give 10% of your money to charity to make money. I
Mhm.
started giving money to charity so that I would make more money,
Mhm. I did that
right?
2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's you do have to do it,
Yeah.
and it completely transformed my life. If I didn't start giving that 10% of my money to charity when I was a firefighter in my early career, if I didn't start giving 10% of my money to charity back then, I never would have gone on this whole walkabout to find where to give this money, where
Mhm.
to like get involved in philanthropy. And
Mhm.
now, our work has has impacted or will impact about 200,000 people in 14 countries. 200,000 people have been impacted. And it all started with me wanting to make more money and therefore giving money away.
Mhm.
Right. So the universe dangled the carrot of
Mhm.
you'll make more money if you give money. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll bite that carrot. Started
Yeah.
giving money. And then I was like, wait, this is my calling. This is
Mhm.
what I love more than anything else.
That's so.
So I feel like we are the universe is working through us at all times, and
Yeah.
it's giving us these impulses at all times.
Yeah.
These impulses could be like, just go to the deck, or go look in your purse for the chapstick. And when you do, you find the note from, sorry, my,
That's
my,
okay.
my alarm keeps going off. You find the
You
note
can
from your
also dance
lover
in
that,
front of us if you like, and you want to
yeah,
be.
I'm not that good of a dancer. I can try. I did a workout the other day. This is like my running man. What do you think?
Very great. Yeah.
Usually I do more of like jumping like this,
Oh
more of
yeah.
a jumper. Like
But
when I
that's
get
a good
my
power
alarm, I'm
pose
like,
as
yes,
well.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
It's like
yes, like that.
celebrating that you're alive.
Yeah, exactly. Why not?
And
So,
I'm sure you saw a TEDx talk from Amy Cuddy about like,
oh yeah,
the body thing. So I love that.
totally.
One of my favorites.
That's a good one. So, anyways, the impulses, I just think that we need to follow those things, right? Especially when we think it's for something
Mhm.
selfish, or, oh, I
Mhm.
shouldn't do that because of whatever. You know what I mean? Like, the rational mind is just getting in the way, and it's getting in the way of something that the universe is like, no, go do this.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, the last question. I know that we have to start wrapping up as well because you have some meetings. How is it to speak at TEDx? Tell us more about that experience. You've done it 4 times already.
Oh my God, it's just the most freaking stressful thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I have had full breakdowns before every TEDx talk. I've had like full messy crying. Like I've tried to switch my topic at the last minute to like
Oh,
to be more easy for me, to be like something I've spoken about in the past. I've tried to run away from them. I've tried to all the things, because it brings up all the stuff. And this is what life is about, right? It's not about avoiding fears, but doing the things
no,
that make
it's
us
doing the things.
fearful, and then looking those fears in the eye,
Yeah.
right? Like, we had 9 clients do TEDx talks just last weekend alone. 9 clients all in one weekend do TEDx talks, and all of them went through the process. The process, it's different for everyone,
Yeah.
but the process is, you're going to feel a lot of fear, you're going to
Mhm.
feel anxiety, you're going to feel stress, you're going to feel all of these things that are
Mhm.
going to make you a stronger, more expanded, more
Mhm.
full version of yourself.
Mhm.
Like, doing a TEDx talk is a full-on transformational experience in and of itself, right? Because it's such an opportunity to share your voice, and it's also an opportunity to slip back into old patterns. Like, you might slip back into old patterns of like, I need to prove myself, and therefore I'm going to put in all of this few paragraphs talking about why I'm so great, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, into the TED talk.
Yeah.
When in reality, a really, really great TED talk is the most potent version, the most egoless version of what you can say. It's all about like taking out rather than jamming in,
Yeah.
right? Like, 18 minutes is not that long, and that's how long a TED talk can be. And
Mhm.
that's what I tell clients. I'm like, look, now that you have your talk written, take out all the stuff that you put in there to prove something to someone,
Mhm.
right? Take out those lines saying, once when I did such and such, because you're putting it in there. Chances are you're putting it in there because you don't feel like you're enough,
Mhm.
right? Like, pull those things out, and then you have like a deep, raw, authentic, potent TEDx talk. And like I said, the effects of these TEDx talks are just absolutely phenomenal. You can reach so many more people than on any other platform that I know of.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's like to do them. Is it's a full
Okay.
process, it's a full thing,
Uh-huh.
and it's all of it, and it's the most exhilarating thing ever, because you
Yeah.
get to the other side of it and you're like, I did it. Like, it's a
Yeah.
milestone. If you're feeling like you should do it, it's chances are, if you have an impulse, like we are just talking about impulses, if you have an
Mhm.
impulse to do a TEDx talk,
Mhm.
that's not your brain, that's like your soul being like,
Mhm.
no, you need to get this message out, because it's part of why you're alive.
Yeah. Do you have one of the events that was your favorite for whatever reason? Like the coolest city, the coolest audience, the
um
coolest talk you think that you gave?
yeah, the most memorable was my first one. It was the first time I ever did a public speech in ever in my life. The first time I ever got on a stage with the TEDx talk.
Mhm.
And so I was so nervous. I sat there and like prayed and meditated for half an hour before I
Mhm.
got up into the talk. I was so nervous that I actually I had a whole bunch of slides, and my best friend was in the audience, but I made her do the clicker,
Oh
because
wow.
I was so
Okay.
nervous that I would like not remember to click it. And
Okay.
so taught her how to click it taught her when she's supposed to click it. So
Yeah.
no one knows, but she's at the back of the room clicking the slides
That's so
for
cool.
me because I didn't think I could do both.
Hmm.
And I had dry mouth and I had sweaty pits and my face was all red and nervous and it sounded like I'd just been chewing on a bunch of cotton. My mouth's like,
Yeah.
and my designer at the time, the one person who worked for me at the time, literally got a bleeding nose in the room because he was so nervous for me. Like it was just like we were both just terrified.
Yeah.
And that talk, the talk's been seen by 100,000 people now.
Hmm.
And that talk is what catalyzed. It's called "How to Build a School in 3 Hours" is the name of it. How to Build a School in 3 Hours.
Hmm.
And that talk catalyzed the building of 300 schools all over the world.
Yeah.
So going through that fear, going through that terrified day led to, oh my God, like
So many beautiful things.
hundreds of schools in
So cool.
countries all over the world. Nuts,
So,
right?
so super cool. Yeah.
That's probably one of my fondest memories.
Okay. Where was that TED Talk?
There was a tiny one in Victoria, British Columbia.
Nice.
Just a little one.
And
It's
that's
like
what
a
I love
conference
as
room
well.
with people on
Yeah.
roller chairs.
That's what I love about TEDx, though, that it can be super, like it's actually
Yeah.
a small location and it's maybe not a lot of people, but it's TEDx.
It's the platform. Exactly. It doesn't matter if it's one of my clients who's got 4 million views. His talk was in like a multi-purpose room in a middle school or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was 19 when he did the talk, and
Mm-hmm.
he was the oldest speaker because it was a TEDx Kids event.
Mm-hmm.
It was TEDx Kids, and this thing's now been viewed by 4 million people. He's like 25. He's never had a job because his TEDx talk went so well that he became a speaker. He's done hundreds of speaking events all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
paid very well to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And now his whole job is spreading his message.
Yeah, that's so cool. I always have a couple of questions at the end of my interviews. So I'm going to get into those really, really quickly. First
Sure.
thing is, what are you most grateful for in your life?
Oh my gosh. I don't know how this is going to sound cliche or not, but I'm just grateful to be here today in like this body. I actually look at life in an opposite way that it's typically looked at. I think most people look at life as like, well, I'm here for like 80 years. I'm going to do everything I can. Like, well, I'm going to do what I can right here. Maybe it's a grind. It's stressful. It's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that the real reality is not here. The real reality is like the merged oneness, not singularity, the unification, and that I get to come here. So every time I get to come here, like every time I wake up, I'm like, oh fuck yes, I got another day to like smell the flowers, be in the water, talk to people, connect with other souls that are living a human experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how I feel today.
Yeah.
And I love feeling like that because it keeps me in this place of like, I'm just super grateful to be here. And I'm not saying that challenges don't happen. They happen, right? Stuff comes up and stuff totally triggers me. That's very easy. But if I can keep coming back to that, well, this is an experience. I get to have this experience. It's short. It's like a blink of an eye. I mean, I don't know how long you're going to live, but I'm probably going to live, I don't know, like 80 years or 90 years or something like that, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's a very short amount of time.
Yeah, it is. Cool. I love that. Thank you. What are your 3 most important wisdoms in your life that you would like to share with others?
A couple quotes I would say would kind of sum them up. One is by Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, which is the second most read book aside from the Bible. And it says, only the man who knows enough is enough will ever have enough. Mm-hmm. Only the man who knows enough is enough will ever have enough. Not knowing what is enough is like paralyzing our culture. Is insidious, is poisoning our society. Mm-hmm. No one's saying enough, and therefore we're overusing in a lot of ways, as you know. Mm-hmm. So that one. I also like one by Osho that says, for a tree's branches to reach heaven, its roots must reach hell. Right. So her trees branches to reach heaven.
I've never heard that before. Wow.
Yeah, I probably I'm probably misquoting it slightly, but you get the point. The point is the same. Yeah. In that we, especially in like the new UK, that's the last time that'll happen. For our, especially in like the new, let's say like the new age spiritual world, it's so focused on positivity.
Mhm.
right? We're so focused on be positive, focus on what you want and all that kind of stuff. Great. We don't focus on the roots, like the deep down, the foundation, the dark, where
Mhm.
there's no light.
Mhm.
And that's in my mind where the power is both of those being like, oh, I'm super triggered right now. Where's that from? Is
Mhm.
that from when I was 4 years old and I was taught to never show off and therefore, or whatever it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's both of those. It's like, yes, the positivity, yes, the affirmations, yes, the goals, yes, the manifesting and blah, blah, blah. And the deep work. Where am I showing up out of integrity? Where am I being a total arrogant dickhead?
Mhm.
Who am I letting down that I
Mhm.
don't need to be kind of letting down?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
the light and the dark at the same time
Yeah.
is where that's the full spectrum in my
That's
mind.
that's awesome. Yeah.
And then so those are two wisdoms. And if I had another one, yeah, one thing that I really like is like self-acceptance. We call it self-love, loving yourself, etc. Um, I love the word. I love the word acceptance. I like fully accepting who I am. That there's nothing more freeing to
Mhm.
me than that
Mhm.
is not being dependent on other people's approval for
Yeah.
who for me feeling good. Like
Yeah.
uh, other people's truth is not my truth,
Yeah.
or doesn't have to be my truth. And so I think self-acceptance, that's kind of my journey over and over again, is like continuing to accept myself
Yeah.
despite what others think. And the cool thing is that we can listen to that and go, yeah, oh, that's a really good idea. I'll just kind of start accepting myself more. But there's tangible things that you can do to do that, like
Mhm.
to not give a fuck, right?
Yeah.
There's tangible things. One of the craziest things I've done lately, or one thing I do before speeches when I'm like caring too much what other people are thinking. Like if
Mhm.
I'm really caught up in like, oh, are they gonna like me? Are they gonna laugh at my jokes? And am I enough? When I get really caught up in that stuff, which I totally do. Um, if I'm flying to the speech, I'll force myself to go to the front of the plane and then do deep lunges all the way down the aisle to the back of the plane, looking people in the eye on each
Okay.
lunge, like full deep staring, because it's very awkward. Because now I'm the awkward guy in front of 300 people, so I'm being
Uh-huh.
judged by 300 people, and so it makes me feel
Mhm.
awkward. But then
Mhm.
I get to the end of the aisle and I didn't die, and it feels great. Um, or another thing I did recently was I went nude modeling because I felt like very nervous to be naked in front of a whole room of people that I do know or don't know,
Yeah.
and so I forced myself to go nude modeling and sit there for 3 hours butt naked in front of a bunch of people.
Like,
And
hey, me
by the end of it, I was like, wow, I feel exponentially more comfortable in my own skin. So I'm gonna probably start doing that either once a week or once every 2 weeks. Where
so
it's just
cool.
like it's a habit. Like
Yeah.
becoming comfortable with ourselves again is a habit. It's not like it just happens.
Definitely.
Once I get here, then I'll be comfortable with myself. It's like no, that means your comfort is dependent on something else,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Whereas we can work on it every day. You could go to Starbucks right now and just like lay down in the lineup, just like lay down on the floor and time yourself for 1 minute
Uh,
and just let people walk around you,
mhm.
and then after a minute get up and order your grande frappuccino with orange sprinkles.
Yeah.
You can do these things to care less what people think, and
Yeah.
it's incredibly
Yeah.
freeing um,
That's
in the
super cool.
process.
Did you have a book? We already talked about The Power of Now, but was there anything that really like you feel like it changed your life or it so inspired you to be different? You mentioned as well The Secret earlier, but that's more a movie.
Yeah, the most fascinating book I've read lately is Sex at Dawn.
Okay.
It is just like freaking fascinating. Oh my
Okay.
gosh, every page is just gold. It's absolutely amazing. Looking into the history of sexuality, where we came from, like why we have the agreements that we have in society these days, the
Mhm.
constructs, the relationship constructs, etc.
Mhm.
And it's the most fascinating in my mind. Yeah, learning about myself as a man and as a primate was really interesting. It was more interesting learning about women and learning about what's natural to women and the scientific research behind what women are attracted to and why.
Okay.
And it's absolutely incredible. So Sex at Dawn is the most interesting one I've read lately.
Cool. All right. I'll look into that for sure.
And
So,
then for a spiritual one, I really like Conversations with God.
okay. Oh, I love that one
Yeah,
as well. That's cool. All right.
yeah.
And so, how can people connect with you if they want to talk to you, learn more from you, book you as
I
a
think
TEDx speaker?
Yeah, I mean, if you want a TEDx talk, Instagram's the easiest. My
Yeah.
Instagram is, if you type in Taylor Conroy, you'll see it. There's not too many Taylor Conroys out there.
Mhm.
Taylor A Conroy is my Instagram. So
Mhm.
if you type in Taylor A Conroy on Instagram, shoot me a DM. and we can talk. The first thing I'm going to ask is like, what's your idea?
Cool.
What's your TEDx idea
Yeah.
in one sentence? And if you've got that, then we'll start riffing.
Okay, cool. Well, it
Yeah.
was such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so, so much. And this was such a
Yeah.
beautiful conversation. And like you said as well, there's always this, coming together, and we just DM'd on Instagram, and here we are sitting in
Yeah.
a podcast interview. And I believe that too. Like I think that we met for a reason, and I want to transport your message out for a reason as well. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be extremely happy and grateful if you could leave me a comment and a 5-star rating. If you know someone who would benefit from the information I talked about today, please feel free to share it with them, no matter if it is your friends, your colleagues, and/or your family members. You will always find all links and a summary of the podcast in the show notes. It would be great if we could connect on Instagram or via email. You can find all details of how to find me in the show notes as well. In that way, you can also send me any questions that you might have. And as I mentioned, I also have a wonderful YouTube channel now where you can post comments and questions, so please reach out. I'm glad you're listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for your trust. With gratitude, Julia.